We are live. 1 minute late because the Wi-Fi in Lange is amazing.
Not the best. Sorry, guys.
So Carlotta had to move, but we're hoping this works.
Hopefully, tell me if it's not great, but I'm not sure where I can move other than here. This is my last chance here.
Last chance. No, it's the way it is, but and this is the only way we can meet these days. So we just have to do the best we can.
Exactly.
So I think we give it a few more seconds for everyone to join in. But it should be, most people are very quick. And I see people from Manuel Burgis here, we have people from all over the world today. So we have, I think, Belgians and Swiss and Danish and Swedish and so we're from you're talking to the whole world, Carlotta.
Good. The pressure is on.
The pressure is on. No, so I'm so excited about this. So I think we can just start, and then people will join in when they join in. So I think most
hopefully everybody can just jump in with questions, because you always get, us at least as winemakers, we always get lost saying the same old things.
Yes.
And sometimes we bored ourselves, so maybe we always wonder if we bore everybody else.
You are not going to be boring. But please, seriously, people watching, ask questions. If you use the Q&A function, I can see all the questions and I will try to get to all of them. We already have a question, so but so most people know who you are, but let's just start by telling us who you are and what you do, and then we go from there.
Yeah. So I live in Barolo. I am a big dog lover and nature lover and animal lover. I happen to make wine and to work with my family, with my sister at the moment. We run together the family winery that we inherited, and we are the 6th generation now. So it's me and Marta. I take care more of the vineyard side of the estate. My sister, she's a trained enologist, so she slowly she started working with my dad earlier than me. I studied agricultural sciences, and then I went abroad, and I came back joining my dad and my sister slightly later. So Marta, was already involved in the estate, and she took over as she was passionate more of the wine side, and so she got involved more on the winery side. And so naturally, for also my studies, I moved more to the natural side, to the, let's say, the vineyard side of things. So we've been working together since the end of 2014, beginning of 2015. We had the luck of having some years to work with my dad before he passed away. And so since a couple of years, it's me and Marta. It's a small family business. We work with about 10 hectares. Some of them are forest. They're not all vineyards. We kind of try to always underline this side of things, because Barolo and Lange is so much about wine and so much about vines, that it's important to underline that we put an incredible value on the presence of other crops and other, even if it's forest. And having just a garden, or having some fruit trees or something else, not just vines. The vineyard surface is 6.5 hectares that we inherited from our family, divided in 4 different parcels, all in the village of Barolo, so in a small area, just the one of Barolo, divided in 4 different parcels. As I was saying, we added 1.3 hectares just recently as a lease in 2019. And so the surface that we work is just under 8 hectares totally.
But so you mentioned that you're more in the vineyard, Martha's more in the cellar, and you mentioned that you're a nature lover. And you recently on your Instagram you shared, I think maybe it was today, you shared pictures of you're using sticks.
Yeah. So it's willow. It's willow, so salice, and that's the traditional way to tie down the fruit cane after the pruning, because it's very elastic. It's very easy to work with it, and so it just works as a little thing to keep down the cane. It's perfect, and it's very sustainable.
I know, because what other materials do other people use? I mean, I've seen there's multiple different ones, right? But this is literally you're using nature on nature.
Yes, yeah, we have always had just at the end of the slopes some trees of willows, which were planted and maintained exactly for these reasons. So we are very happy to be keeping on using them. I'm very slow at doing them. The lady and the man who has been helping out in the vineyard since a couple of generations. She's more than 80 and she's close to 86. So yeah, they are incredibly fast. So it's impossible to keep up with them.
I mean, that's incredible, because I've seen a lot of other types of methods. You know, people walk around with this sort of gun almost, or like a stapler.
Yeah.
But so you really are a sustainable winery. I mean, you use nature on nature, and I thought that I stole the picture from Instagram.
Yeah, it's something that a few producers still use. Not so many, unfortunately. Because I guess that we, throughout the generation, we kind of lost the manual side of it and the capacity of being fast as much as using the machine gun with the little stainless steel thing that keeps it firm. Because at the end of the day, it has to be very well done, because the point is to keep the fruit cane tied to the line, to the stainless steel line. So yeah, we put a lot of importance in this. You know, it's small details, but at the end of the day, it makes a difference throughout the vintages, throughout the season, throughout the decades. And so it's nice, and it's a beautiful manual gesture as well to watch and to do.
I mean, it looks so. I've actually done this job where you bend. Nicola from Tredberry calls it a time massage, and so you bend the vine and then you tie it. But I don't forget what it was, but we used something else to sort of tie it down. But so I've actually done this process once.
Yes. You can try with this way.
It looks very complicated. I think you have to do a video.
Not that much. You just don't have to look at Gigi and Fiora doing it, because otherwise you feel horrible because you're very slow. But I will be there, and I'm as slow as probably you will be.
So hopefully, maybe next pruning and bending the vine season, I can come and I can try this old traditional method.
Yes. Yeah.
No, but I think what you do is so fascinating. And you mentioned something very interesting early, that you have 10 hectares, but not all of the hectares are vineyards. So you keep other plants and forest, and you mentioned a little bit why, but can you talk a little bit more about the significance of keeping other crops?
Yeah, I'm very happy you underlined it, because it's something which is incredibly dear to me, and hopefully it's going to be part of the conversation in the upcoming years, because the Barolo area is living quite the lucky moment, the boom of the interest from all over the world, and it's been building up, and this had incredibly, of course, positive consequences, but at the same time, seeing how throughout the decades and the generations this area has changed as just a natural confirmation. And what we see all over is a sea of vines, of vineyards, and nothing else. There are very, very few forests and just untouched areas existing in Barolo and in the area of Barolo. Back in time, it was far more an agricultural complex system. There were vines for sure, there were fruit trees, there was wheat, there was animals. So especially cows were present. So all the farms were actually complex farms. My family as well. My dad grew up, and on one side in the house and in the winery where we still are now, and on one side of the azienda there was a little stalla. There were a couple of cows, and then there were chickens, and then there were pigs, a little bit of everything. So it feels to me that there is so much value that we lost in this. The ecosystems cannot sustain on monoculture, and that's something which is absolutely undeniable. And sooner or later, the consequences of this are going to show up. So as much as we can, being a small winery, we try to put a value on this, keeping the forest, having our little gardens, growing our things, having bees. We're gonna have some chickens. I've got a hunting dog, so that is a little bit of the problem to maintain some chickens in the vineyard. So we'll see if they will survive and for how long. But yeah, that's something. And also, you know, it's important for us as growers, as farmers, to just being able to work with something else, to face agriculture in a more complex way, not just always working with vines, but prune a vine tree, but also prune an apple tree, a peach tree or something. It's just a way to enrich ourselves. And I think that this is something incredibly important for, and it's going to be more and more important.
Because I have here, this is the town of Barolo, and the highlighted area is Le Costa. And if I'm not mistaken, this is your winery.
No. Yes. Yeah. Where you are now. Yes, exactly. This is it.
So you can see there's all this forest and there's some green land here. And I think in theory, a lot of this could be vineyards if you wanted to, right?
Well, no, they couldn't. I mean, you can't really grow. It would be stupid to do something like that.
But still, you could potentially.
Yeah, but that for sure, everything could be vineyards if we think about it. But yeah, it's at the end of the valley. Actually, there is a very small, not river, but just a water source that goes all over here. And yeah, that was a little bit slightly larger forest back in the days. Basically from where the camera is looking, the downside of it was all forest still. So unfortunately, in the years, that became all vineyards and vineyards and vineyards. But yeah,
well, when I zoom out, it's all vineyards, basically the whole.
Exactly. Yeah. This one is the Bosco, is the forest. We call it Bosco De La Fava, and it connects. Oh, exactly. Oh, that's amazing. That's the map. That's the Masnanghetti map, and it connects Barolo to Monforte. So you can have a beautiful, beautiful walk through it, and you arrive to Monforte.
That's an idea for a activity.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's very beautiful.
No, but I think it's so important to keep. And I mean, if people are in London are doing all kinds of things, they're getting chickens to eat the larvae that eat the grape, and they're raising bees, and I mean, so a lot of people are investing in sort of this type of.
And then I didn't mention hazelnuts. Hazelnuts were present everywhere. Maybe not as qualitative height, the height of some areas in Alta Langa, but still they were present everywhere. Every slope and every end of the valley had their own use. So where Nebbiolo could have been planted in the best completely south-facing, exposed, warm areas, there was Nebbiolo. Slow going down in the hills, there was Dolcetto, there was Barbera, there was Fresa, and then in the plains there were hazelnut, there were fruit trees. Sometimes there was wheat crop or corn as well in some places. So it was a far more complex and sustainable system in my opinion.
And so you talked about that, you mentioned that we will see sort of the effects of this monoculture in the future, but another effect we probably will see is climate change. And what do you, I mean, it's a topic all on its own and we could talk about it all day, I think, but in sort of a short version, how do you see climate change sort of influencing the way you make wine and the type of wine that you grow
we are already observing it, so it will be worse. That's pretty much undeniable, but we are already observing it. Every season now is even for me, and I've been doing this for not a long time, and I feel like every season I struggle to have reference points. Winter from the winter, so winters are not the winters that I remember as a kid. It's very, very unusual now to have snow. This year was a good snowy winter for the first time in years, a cold one again, but it's been years and years in which it was maximum -5, -7, which is not enough for balance of in small habitats of the soils. So it's a cycle, and the strong cold temperatures is part of this cycle. Not having them, of course, was having all sorts of effects. And then, of course, warm winters would causing very early bud breaks. So the season was starting earlier, which exposed Nebbiolo to be more sensitive to frost, to spring frost. 17 was an example. In April, some places got smashed by frost. And then we are having long periods of droughts, followed by very, very heavy rainfalls. So this, of course, causes the soil not being able to retain water enough, and so erosion. There are movements of soils. Then we are dealing now with sunburns, with heat spikes. We have the luck of having diaries of my grandfathers and my fathers. They used to keep diary every day with the climate, with the weather forecast, and what was happening in the winery, everything else. So I've read most of them, and there was not even once mentioned sunburn problem. It was quite the opposite. Nebbiolo at some stage needed to be opened up, the canopy needed to be opened up. So working with the removal of lateral shoots to expose the benches, also because of mildew, no, oidium, powdery mildew.
Yeah.
So expose the bunches to being able to to avoid attacks of the powdery mildew. Whereas now we have to pay so much attention lately to not expose the bunches, or do it the least as possible, or doing it later in time, because you get sunburns. And it's something that, you know, you didn't really have any reference before. I remember 2019 in June, which was a really good vintage, but in June 2019, there were 3-4 days of 38.5 degrees in the canopy, in the vine. So, which is something that you can easily understand how the vine cannot deal with it. And so huge sunburns. Usually the sunburns happen quite early in time, quite early when the berries are still green. And so they shrivel. It's an imbalance of the capacity of the vine to absorb water and the evapotranspiration of water through the leaves. And so the cells on the surface of the berries just die, and so the berries shrivel, but they don't fall usually, because it happens before veraison, usually before the changing of the color of the bunches of the berries. And so it's something that you absolutely have to deal with at the harvest. So yeah, you know, it's hard to have a certain kind of reference. What everybody, or a lot of people, is saying is that it's a kind of positive, is having positive consequences for maturation of Nebbiolo, for the ripening. Nebbiolo now is ripening everywhere. This is helped because of especially the last 2 months before the harvest. September, October are very sunny now. They're warm and sunny, so Nebbiolo ripens well everywhere. But nobody really underlines the fact that the acidities are now dropping. The pHs are getting higher. It's all this sort of element.
This was very depressing.
Sorry.
This was very depressing. This was.
But it is real. It is what's happening, and it's having you know, you kind of see.
I think this.
Yeah, this can be or a very bad attack of downy mildew, or a bad sunburn.
I think this was sunburn. I was told. I don't know for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And it's very sad, this picture. I mean, it's just horrible.
Yeah, look at that. And I remember in 2019.
And this was in 2019. This picture from 2019.
There you go. Yeah, because especially in vineyards which are west exposed or southwest, so they are seeing the afternoon sun. That's the worst, because that's the warmest moment. So it can really affect the situation. Yeah, I think it's even more like pushing, or at least it should be even pushing us in this area, which is a very lucky area for the moment, to have even a more sustainable approach towards nature, you know, a certain attitude towards nature, because at the end of the day, we make wines that travel the world, that are very are having this sort of big moment, and we travel the world sending a message of quality, but then we can't really talk about quality if we still in some places use herbicides and weed killers on great vineyards, on amazing vineyards, on the greatest vineyards of the area. So that's something I'm quite hard on, but that's the reality. I think that the area should really finally take a strong position on certain things, and the use of herbicide, banning certain use of treatments, like especially weed killers, which is proved, it is absolutely undeniable that kill the soil, kill nature, and it's all about this. So
So I know that you know, herbicides is one thing, but there are some diseases for the plants where you have to use a certain type of medicine. But I know that some producers are researching alternative sort of homeopathic methods to deal with these diseases instead of using, you know, chemicals or things that are bad, right?
Yeah. It's so the way you face the, let's say, seasonal diseases, which are mainly downy mildew and powder mildew, it's one thing. But then the way to deal with the weed control, it's something that really I think makes a difference, because I'm not saying that we should all move to organic farming, biodynamic farming, or whatever, and that Nebbiolo and Barolo area would be ready for this, because some vintages in the area are incredibly difficult from the especially downy mildew pressure. The humidity is incredible, so it can be tough. That's for sure something that it's more, my position is strong more on the weed controls on the soils. Some places in the world, and in Toscana, for example, I've heard in Burgundy, in some Grand Cru places, they are moving to banning some weed killers, in general, herbicides and weed killers. And I think that we are a region that should make that move as well. For the control of the yearly diseases, let's say that the normal, of course, there are conventional practices, and more like sustainable and organic practices is the use of copper and sulfur. And then there are some treatments, some elements, and some natural, let's say, approaches that can help. But it's very hard in Barolo, in the area, to eliminate copper. I've been trying to do that. It's something I've been focusing in, because it was just really interesting for me since I've been involved in the winery, to research for alternative treatments. And it can be done, absolutely. The reduction of copper, of input of copper through the treatments, is something possible, and something we are focusing on. But in some years, you can not avoid using them. You can reduce it to 2 kilos per hectare, 2.5, 3 kilos per hectare, and in some others, it's very hard to stay below 4 kilos of copper per hectare. You can use tea extractions, many different things. The use of propolis, for example. There are some good ways. The use of some clays that can help to just reduce the quantity that you put at each treatment, and maintain it for a longer time, so it's just a little bit more sticky, so it doesn't get rained, let's say, rained away through the rainfall. So there are ways. It's something that needs more experimentation and exploration.
I know you're I mean, I think you the winemakers that I have, you know, on Zoom, and my friends in Lange, they all have, you know, their different projects. Like Chiara Boschis now has chickens to try to pick away the larvae, and Alfio Cavallotto is looking into drones flying around spraying the vine so that it doesn't compact the soil. And I mean, so I mean, you're all looking to the future, and I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's positive.
But so speaking of the future, because we're talking about how it's getting warmer and the weather is changing, and so this is Brunate, and it's a hill.
Yeah.
And you know, there's definitely different climate on the bottom than on the top. And with the temperatures rising and you know, maybe humidity also rising, are you approaching the work in the vineyard differently now than years ago?
I think that maybe the management of the soil work and I've been trying to push as much as possible throughout the seasons, the mowing moments, and trying to enhance as much as possible the natural cover crop. I got to say that we were starting from a very positive and lucky position, because my dad was and my grandfather as well, they were very close to nature, and so that was something that they were paying a lot of attention to. So the variety of flowers and weeds that you find, it's really surprising. So I've been trying to just enhance it as much as possible to reduce the passages of tractors, so to reduce as much as possible anything and delaying all the works of the soil as much as possible. But it depends very much. Yeah, in some years of even more moments of drought and moments of warmth, I've been even eliminating as much as possible the mowing, which is something that some people would say, oh, you enhance competition. Is actually not what you're getting. You're getting, you are providing a certain kind of humidity to the top layers of soils, which is where the vines and the roots are taking their nutrients and the water from. So it's very much year by year, but something that for climate change has been completely changing, I wouldn't say. There are some things that I've been trying, but it's more linked to an interest of just, let's say, following more the physiological attitude of the vine. And so I've been going back to not cutting, not edging anymore the top of the vines and doing the arches, and delaying doing the arches again as much as possible to have consequently to have less intervention on the canopy, because they're not pushing as much as they used to lateral shoots, and so less intervention on the canopy. I've been interventing on the pruning, switching to what it is, let's say, up to my eyes, a more respectful yes, respectful, I would say, approach to pruning. So since 7 years, we are now doing what it is considered the method Poussard pruning, of what the Simonite and Sierra guys are doing. And I've been absolutely amazed by it, on the consequences that I've seen, I've observed on the balance of the vineyard. So yeah, there are some things that I've been trying on, and we'll see for sure.
But so on it's getting warmer, and some, it's rumored that, people are moving to the top of the hill because it's cooler and it has more air. Do you think we will see a trend, especially with the south exposed vineyards, that it's going to be too much? The temperatures are going to keep rising, and it's going to be too hot, and it's going to be too sunburn, or maybe you just have to change your technique in the vineyard completely? I mean, what do you think?
I've been thinking about it. What I have observed is that some areas which were probably not really that considered as amazing as they actually are showing now, and Ravera is one of the example of a climate which is changing. I think that they are just really showing some characters that are positive now, higher acidities, freshness and everything. But what I haven't for the moment observed is a lack of something in the great places. Brunate keeps on being and let's say performing even in warmer years in a very surprising way. It's a matter of a very delicate relationship among the vines and the soil and the microclimate. So yeah, of course, I've been paying maybe more attention on the way we are treating the soils, but for the moment, I haven't seen any lack of something or some big changes on saying, okay, Brunate, I'm not sure how it's going to be performing in years and years if it keeps on being this warm. But who can say that? It's very hard to say this.
I mean, we can't predict the future, but we can look at trends, and we can look at, you know, the past couple of years. But so, I mean, potentially, let's say Brunate became, you know, too warm or too concentrated. Would it then be sort of an option to blend in grapes from other vines and not make a Brunate cru, but put it in a blend instead? For instance, with grapes from Ravera, who are maybe more fresh and have more acidity.
We're happy to do Brunate. You know that it's already a blend, so it's Brunate plus Le Coste. It's 85% Brunate plus 15% of Le Coste. So absolutely, the blend is something that for us is a plus. We consider it absolutely something we can play with. And why not? I mean, you can, at the end of the day, that's why we do it, to balance things out, or otherwise enhancing characters of one vineyard and the other. So why not? Absolutely, it could be the way in some decades. Who knows? At the moment, it is blended with Le Coste for reasons of different characters. Brunate is a more clay-based soil, where the layers of sand are slightly less present, whereas Le Coste as Cannubi San Lorenzo, they're probably the result of the same geological formation, and so the presence of layers of sand is slightly more present. In Le Coste, there is this elegance and this perfume that sometimes Brunate can have less. Brunate is all about the depth, it's all about the width. So having this presence of Le Coste really enhances even more the power, giving it more let's say elegance. It could be absolutely that the blends in the years are going to change. We would be open to it as much as my dad and my grandfather were open. I think my grandfather throughout the years was changing every year, even because it was allowed to. I mean, there were not strict laws about or regulations about it. You could really play with that and that and put something on the label without really mentioning too much, or mentioning what you wanted to mention. So it's becoming a little bit more complicated now. If you want to,
no, there are so many rules. But so I mean, I think I knew that your Brunate was a blend. But do you have an exception, or with a cru Barolo, can you add in a percentage of another cru and still call it?
You're allowed to a maximum 15% of another vineyard. But if it's more than 15%, you cannot use the name of Brunate. So you're allowed to just one name on the label, and it has to be at least 85%. So historically, our Brunate Le Coste, my dad's Brunate Le Coste, was probably 75, 80, 85%, depending on the taste and on the performance of every year. And then, so we decided to drop down a little bit the presence of Le Coste to at least being able to keep the name Brunate, because it's just something that, but first of all, is a vineyard which is 1.2 hectares for us. So for a small size like ours, is an important vineyard. And then it's of course a beautiful vineyard. So we decided to at least maintained it without really changing that much the blend.
But so you make, we've talked so much about vineyard work, which I mean, I think we could talk about it all day, but you also, we should talk a little bit about your wines because you make a lot of very good wines. And I forgot to say earlier that you make your Brunate is one of the best wines in the world. So, but you make Dolcetto, Barbera, Langhe Nebbiolo, you have your Freisa.
Mm-hmm.
And then you you still make the Rosà?
Okay. See, Rose, actually, I didn't have any Rinaldi wines at home. I just had the other day, I was trying to, and I picked a Rouquet 2005, just as a just to try. Yeah, we still make Rouquet. We still make Rouquet.
And then you make Barolo that you call Tretine,
which is the blend of Cannubi San Lorenzo, Le Coste, and a very small quantity of, Cannubi San Lorenzo, Ravera, and a very small quantity of Le Coste, which is not anymore with the Brunate. It's a 5% of Le Coste, so that's why it's called Tretine.
Yeah. And then you
in Italiano, you know, is the big vat for fermentation. So 3 vineyards, basically.
And then you have your Barolo Cru, and you mentioned your Brunate.
Yeah.
So you just acquired Bussia.
Sì.
So it's the one you're leasing, 1.3 hectares, you said.
Yeah. So 0.3 is Dolcetto, and it's about 1 hectare of Nebbiolo da Barolo.
Yeah, and so will you then potentially make a Cru Bussia, or?
Yeah, I think we will consider to make a third Barolo Bussia. We will see if it is it's going to be a blend of something else. But it's probably going to be the majority of Bussia, but we'll see if it's going to need, who knows, maybe something else. We are tasting it. The first vintage was 19, so we're tasting it through, and we'll see in the coming months and years what it's going to need. Or if it's just going to be 100% Bussia.
So, but you acquired after your father passed away, right?
Yeah, well, we started leasing it just in January 19. It was a conversation then that we went on with for months and months with him while he was still around. It was something that he had in mind since many years, but he never really got the chance of putting his hands on something interesting. Also, it was just interesting in something like Brunate or some plot of Cannubi, or maybe some plot of next to Le Coste. So it's very hard that those vineyards come up. And so yeah, we got informed that this piece was, the rent was finishing. We knew the previous person who was renting, and he was not interested. And so at the end, we keep on going with the conversation. Then my dad passed away, and we kind of left it. But then at the beginning of the year, we just said, why not? It's a good plot. It's also a good project, no, to be involved in, as also a new page. We had to turn page somehow. And so having something starting with a new project to start with was something nice.
Because I mean, a lot of, people growing up now are, daughters or sons of winemakers, and at one point you take over. And I think the big question then is, do you, like, are you gonna, other than, obviously with the climate and changes like that, like, are you making any other changes or thinking about moving in a different direction, or will you keep going the way you're going, do you think?
What we are doing, no, we have the luck of loving the wines that they were made in the past, so it's already a really good starting point. And we put a lot of importance in what was done in the past and in tradition, in what we learned from my dad and from in the past years. So there is no interest to make any revolutions for us. What we're doing is evolutions every year for sure, but big changes, no. This, of course, adding a new parcel, it was a big move. But yeah, somehow I think it's also part of every generation to maybe try to leave something else to the next generation. And that's how my dad was kind of resonating. He wasn't able to do it throughout his life, but he was very, very focused on it in his last few months. It was like, I've been putting aside money, and that's why I haven't done anything else, any big investments. So that's the way. So definitely that was a big step. But from a philosophy point of view, or from a stylistic point of view, I don't see anything really changing other than the every year evolution that we're doing. We still ferment in big vats with natural fermentations and indigenous yeasts, and we still age in big oaks. So yeah, it's pretty much the same.
But I mean, so isn't there an expression like if it's not broke, don't break it? Like you're doing, I mean, you make good wine, so why would you then all of a sudden change everything that you do? I mean, as you said, you have to make changes every year because of the, you know, the changes in the seasons. But I mean, why? I mean, you have a good thing going, so.
Yeah, I think there is a misconception is that if you don't do any big changes or revolution, you get stuck and doing the same old things, and it's the easy way. But it's not really. It's yeah. Every year you're dealing with something different, and it's a challenge. So yeah.
So we're skipping a little back and forth, but so this has been very dominated by sustainable winemaking and climate change, and we will keep going because it's a very interesting topic. And I'm sure you get, and I also get a lot of questions about, you know, because, you know, the seasons are changing and temperatures are rising and the climate, you know, is changing so drastically. Do you think it will happen that you will move to use other grape varieties in Piemonte?
We are, I mean, not other, but one of the things that happened in the last years, and I think monoculture in this played a big role, is that we have a kind of new or recent spreading disease, which is flavescenza dorata, flavescens doré, which is affecting particularly Barbera and Dolcetto. And you see that the vineyards of Barbera Dolcetto in this area, and not only in this area, are just disappearing. Unfortunately, we've been taking out another vineyard of Barbera of Barbera in Ravera. Last year we got one ripped out again for Dolcetto. There were just so many missing vines that it was not making any sense to keep it on going. In one of it, I just said, it doesn't really make any sense that we replant Dolcetto. So we planted Freisa, because Freisa seems like it's not resistant, because it's probably not resistant, but at least it takes more time. Who knows? Because the research and the results are very foggy. They're not very clear. But what is changing is that you gotta really think about different ways and different varieties. I don't see planting, I don't know, Cabernet Sauvignon, but or something else. But I see the different use. I see that now we're gonna have to think very well before planting again another vineyard of Barbera and Dolcetto, which is scary. It's very scary.
I know. So I heard other winemakers had to rip out like tons of rows because of this Flavacenza Durata. But do you think, one option is to plant Freisa or different varieties, but do you think at some point there will come a cure or a medicine so that you stop the problem completely, or?
We're hoping for it because, what we know is that let's say, it likes more Barbera and Dolcetto or Arneis, for example, but it doesn't really dislike anything. So if there is no more Barbera and Dolcetto, it's going to go on the Nebbiolo. And who tells us the Nebbiolo is not going to be resistant enough? Yes, now at the moment, it doesn't really show as much or anywhere near the effects that Barbera and Dolcetto have, but it's something that we all are considering, and if this happens, it's not going to be nice for sure.
I mean, you might have to plant Dolcetto so that the Flavacenza go to the Dolcetto and not the Nebbiolo.
Yeah, I'm not sure how sustainable even economically is that, but it could be a way.
No, but I know for a fact that some winemakers are working on trying to find some sort of medicine or treatment to treat this.
Yeah. There are researches done or trials done by producers, research is done by the universities, but the universities is focusing at the moment very much on genetical modification, which is something that, yes, it could be a way, but it's probably going to take the results. If they're going to be results, they're going to probably take 25 years more or something. So it's not really the sorry, it seems very depressing. I'm not sure, but the most depressing meet the winemaker you have done.
I mean, almost. So it's no, but I think we sit here with our Salto glasses and we drink wine and we say, oh, it smells like red fruit, blah blah blah. But the reality is, this is a job. This is hard work, and there are real problems.
Yeah, it's a region which is incredibly lucky, but it has its flaws as well. So it's important to underline and to put a focus on it, because if we are the more we talk about it, the more we are pushing people having interest in it, and therefore, and I think they're going to be ultimately positive for the region. Yeah.
No, I mean, so it was, climate change is scary, but it's not as, I guess maybe it's as bad as it sounds, but we can maybe end on a very different note, because I got a question here, and I also was wondering the same. How is Vida doing?
Vida is great. She is sleeping now because she's been in the vineyards for the afternoon. And as usual, she has really good runs, and so she is resting now. But yeah, she's the superstar of Rinaldi, the main superstar.
But and you mentioned that you were afraid of getting chickens because she's a hunting dog, but I've seen her in training, and I think she's very trainable. So you can.
Yeah, well, she has this way, even though I've never really trained her for hunting, or of course nothing, not even close, but she kind of switches off when she sees something moving, chicken, or she came back with a turkey once. So that was not nice.
Oh.
Yeah. So the farmers and the little hacienda around the vineyards are not very happy to see Vida sometimes, because she kind of chased a few chickens over the years. So we'll see.
Oh no! But is your mom's dog? Is it still alive?
The Dachshund. Yes,
Yeah.
she's alive. She's grumpy as usual.
I know, she's scary. It's a scary dog.
Yes, it's a very typical Dachshund.
Isn't it like Viola or something?
Sorry?
Isn't the name Viola? No?
Viola. Yeah, it's Viola. Sí.
I remember. So for the people watching, this might be very boring, but I visited Carlotta once, and she had just gotten Vida as a puppy, and we did some dog training in the driveway.
I remember Tony being very.
I know.
Doing an educational masterclass that day.
Masterclass. No, it's so I mean, we're almost out of time, but I'm very happy to see you, and I hope to see you in person very soon.
We hope so.
And I'm doing some sessions about future of wine, about sustainable winemaking, climate change, and avoiding chemicals. So maybe we'll see you in one of those.
Awesome.
And thank you
very much for having me.
It was a pleasure, and I've learned so many things, and I can't wait to go and do the thing with the willow.
Yeah. You're welcome to do that. I'm not sure if there are questions that I can answer or if anything comes up, but I guess.
So I mean, there was a question about vintages, but I think that'll take too long to go past like 7 vintages. Someone wanted to know if I ever brought my dog to Lange, and I did. Larigi was in Lange, yes, crazy dog.
Crazy dog.
Dog. And I mean, you talked about your approach in the winery. You talked about, what kind of method you use, and so I think that some people are wondering why it's so hard to find your wines. And that's just what happens when you make amazing wines.
Thank you very much. And
see, I didn't think you wanted to talk about that.
We have to multiply. My dad was always replying. We can't multiply the breads and the fishes, which I'm not sure how you can actually translate it in English, but it's a way to say you can't really multiply something that doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
But it's a small production. We are very happy that the demand is this high, but it's.
I'm lucky because my dad collects your wine, so I have a 2015 Dolcetto here.
Yeah, I saw that. Very happy that it was still in acceptable form.
That was fantastic. So good.
Good. All Dolcetto is something that people unfortunately are not aware of. But the good Chionetti really quite taught us how it is important even for those, let's say, less known varieties for aging. Instead, they have an incredible value on aging potential.
But I mean, so I tried to keep these about an hour, and I think, we could sit here all night and talk about, there's so many things to talk about, but I think we're going to say grazie mille and let you drinking your ruché, and then I hope to see you soon.
Ciao a tutti. Thank you very much again.
Ciao.
Ciao.